What's up, crew? Welcome back. We got another day of garage pack content for you here. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. We got a new introduction here on the channel. This is actually a little hoopty of mine that we're going to be working on today. No customer car, just something I need to get done for myself. So let's get right into it. And voila, say hello to Red Racer, guys. That's a 2004 Chevrolet Aveo 5 with the hatchback. So boss, I know it's nothing special. It's this is just my little commuter car. Gets me around, gets good gas mileage, and probably in this video we're going to try to make it get better gas mileage. But right now this thing is worn out. She's clapped. It's banging, it's clunking, it's rocking and rolling. Every bump you hit is just, you can hear things knocking around in there. Pretty much every bushing and ball joint is either worn out, loose, cracked, worn, gone altogether, some of them. So in this video we got a whole slew of parts. That's my parts mess pile there. We're going to get that all in the car today. So we're going to go ahead, rip it in the garage and get it on some jack stands, and let's get to work. Yeah, we got the jack set up. We'll start ripping some wheels off, but real quick, let's just take a look at our parts table. Got everything organized out here, laid out, ready to go. So, you know, there's control arms with brand new bushings, ball joints. That takes care of all of that. Stabilizer links. We've got trailing arm bushings, new catalytic converter, ignition coil. Got all full suspension here, strut, shocks, springs. The coilover and everything just makes it easy. It's all just mainly cheap parts from Amazon. That's what a lot of this is going to be. And that's totally fine for a lot of the suspension stuff. You know, even if it wears out earlier than you would expect from some fancy name brand, that's okay, because how long you own this car anyway? If I get 150,000 kilometers instead of 200, I'll be happy. But for now, let's go ahead and rip these wheels off and let's get at her. I will say the rolling stool is a real handy one to have when you're working around here. Real cheap investment to have for the garage. I always just bust these wheel lugs loose just quickly, quarter turn by hand. And little word of advice, usually you gotta happen to have 12-point sockets kicking around in your toolbox. When it comes to wheel nuts, they're always a bit corroded because they're exposed to all the elements and everything. So grab a 6-point. Just make your life easy. Don't strip those things or get a socket stuck on there. Now, one thing I do like, I picked up these jack pads here. They are great for those pinch welds underneath. You stick that on your jack and it just hugs that pinch weld there, and you don't have to worry about folding them in half. So far I will say I love that. It's been working great for me. Well, that's what's great about that. Rip these off with the DeWalt. Oh, look at that. Just a little wiggle. No donkey kick required. All right, jack stands are in. I left the jack in place too. Doesn't hurt to have that kicking around there. It's not holding any weight, but in case a jack stand dropped, at least the jack is there. You could always just take one of your wheels, throw them underneath the car, especially if you're going to be under there. You know, at least it could only drop as far as that wheel and tire, and it would land on that instead of crushing you. Can't breathe. So everything's pretty, like I say, we got to get this strut out of here. We're going to do that. We've got the stabilizer links back here to do, but basically everything's pretty mucky and corroded. I got my homemade weasel piss here. Just grabbed a squirt bottle from the auto parts store. It's 50% acetone, 50% automatic transmission fluid, and that's supposed to be basically, you know, the best. What they say is basically the best penetrating fluid you can get. So I'm just going to go ahead and start dousing all my nuts and bolts and everything here. Just start letting that penetrate in, and hopefully that makes things easier for us as we get into this. We've got these control arms to come out too. We got a ball joint kicking around under here. She's stinky with the acetone. Don't need to do any of that, but what the hell. Okay, caliper brackets are going to come off. Don't spray this stuff on your brakes. Brakes don't like getting oil on them. All right, let's let that soak in there a bit and get after it here. Okay, I just got you guys around the back side there so you can see. I mean, it's just a bolt coming out, but maybe you want to see. So we got a 3/4 inch there just for our caliper mount bracket. We're going to get this caliper out of the way first here. And probably just have to break this by hand because I'm not going to get an impact back there. They're great when you can use them, but a lot of times they don't fit in these little holes. This car, it's a Chevrolet, I don't know, I said Aveo, I think is what I called it. And then somebody laughed at me and they went, "What? You French or something?" It's Aveo. And I said, huh? Aveo sounds a lot more French than Aveo. But I don't know. How do you guys say it? You go ahead and tell me in the comments. Is it French or not? I don't know. I just call it piece of sheet. But it gets around from A to B, and that's what I needed to do. All right, we got our, those were 3/4 inch to pull those out. We got a 32 millimeter here to strip this axle nut off. Now, you can go ahead and laugh all you want because I'm not using a big old air impact. I could run the compressor and make a pile of noise, but just using the old electric, what is this thing? 8 amp. I mean, don't sleep on these guys. They work fine. Yeah, it's not going to have the maximum braking torque of a nice air impact, but this is going to rip off any bolt on your average car. So I just go ahead and drag the extension cord out, and axle nuts is probably about the toughest thing you're going to rip, and it should peel this off pretty good. Now watch it make a liar out of me now that I'm on video. Watch your ears. There you go, axle nut, like butter, no problem at all. So like I said, these little electrics, they're great if you're not fully tooled out. You can pick them up for cheap, man. And they'll rip off any bolt on this car, like without hesitation at all. This wheel bearing is gonna come out. Now, I'll show you how. We'll just go ahead and do this wheel bearing first, and then we can remove the whole hub because it's actually, I think it might be easier to do it on the car. We're not gonna use a press. Just because most of you guys don't have a press at home. So I might as well just do her the old-fashioned hard way here with a basic tool you can buy off Amazon, just to show you what it's like. And it's not as easy as most other people make it look. So we're going to go ahead and show you actually what it's like. Let's get set up for that. So for this to work, we have to get this hub disconnected just so that we can push this axle out of here and get that flop to the side. So we have a 3/4 inch right here for our tie rod end that we're going to pop off. And then we have another 3/4 inch underneath here. Right there for the ball joint upper. And then we'll split this ball joint off of here, only temporarily while we just pop this spindle out and get that axle out of the way. And then we will have to reconnect that loosely at least. Well, bolts are out. Now this one down here for the ball joint is a real pain in the butt because the nut being on top and so close to the spindle here, there's not enough room to get a ratchet wrench head in there. So you pretty much got to do her all manual with the box end wrench, just over and over, quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn. So we got that off. Can't get a power tool in there or anything. Now, if you were going to be like just changing the wheel bearing and you're not doing the ball joint, then obviously you have to protect that ball joint. So you can't just beat that out of there. Everything I've ever seen people do online, they do the same. Oh, just take a hammer, boom, boom, boom. That's it. Just pops right out. Easy peasy. I've done like 100 ball joints in my life. I've never, ever, ever, not even once, ever had a ball joint pop by just smacking a hammer on it. That's never, ever worked. I don't know. Maybe other people are just luckier than me. But you just need to get a cheap set. It's like probably $50 or something to get a ball joint separator kit, and you can do that. But we don't care about this one because we're replacing it. So I just got a pickle fork here. I can just go in here. I don't care if I tear that boot or nothing. And we can just separate it with that. There it goes. Now, the tie rod end. So this is our tie rod end. We need to separate that. And yeah, so like say, everyone will say the same thing. Oh, just hit it with a hammer. Hit it with a hammer. It just falls right out. Yeah, never. It's never happened. So I just got my fancy little separator tool here. We just want to slide that just up over this, over our ball joint grease cap there. Tighten that up and run this down. Boom, pops right out just like that. Very nice. Okay, we got that out of the way. Our ball joint's out. So now, don't yank your axle out from the transmission and spill fluid everywhere. You just push that in there. We'll let that axle hang to the side. And now, we pop this ball joint just back into its hole here. And we'll slip that ball joint nut on just to hold this in place. I know you can't see it, but just use your imagination. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Now we can get to pulling this wheel bearing out because it is a press fit. So we've got a tool to use for that. So we'll set that up, move you back here, and that's next. Now, got my fancy slide hammer kit here. Again, this was like pretty reasonably priced, I would say. Just, you know, you can get this off Amazon. I'll go ahead and link it below just so you can find the same one. This one has worked well for me. So, being that this bearing is press fit in, we're going to pull the whole hub and bearing out together. Right? This hub here is it's pressed into the inside race of the bearing. You'll see that when we take it out. But to get this out, basically just takes a whole lot of brute force. And again, this is another thing that people will show online that they'll do. And let's get the right claw foot here. They'll just go ahead and show you wham wham, falls right out. That's not going to happen either. So I think I got the wrong one here again. Did I miss that? So I'm going to go ahead. I'll hook this up. What I'll do is I'll put it on time lapse for you guys, and I'm going to try to figure out in my video editing how to get a countdown clock going there, or a timer, and then you can watch and see how long this actually takes. I did this on the other side there because that wheel bearing was so bad it felt like it was going to fall off. And my forearms afterwards, I could barely hold a bag of groceries the next day. They were so sore. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll set this up, and once I get it out, I'll show you how it's set up because I won't be able to really get in back there to show you exactly what I'm doing. So once I yank this out, I'll show you how it all goes together to fit this tool on there. Yeah, but let's get after it here. And I was actually thinking ahead of myself there, just flustering my own brain while I'm trying to think and record at the same time. I'm not used to doing this, but I was thinking ahead to actually when we're pressing the bearing and stuff. For the start with the slide hammer, all we're going to do is mount that foot there. Just use some lug nuts, and they're going to go ahead and hold that thing onto the hub. Did that one get tight enough? Oh yeah, we're good. Thread that in there, and then we've got our big old slam bang. Get your mind out of the gutter. Okay, so let's get it on time lapse and let's show you this and how long it actually takes. Pray for me. All right, I'm beat. Now, that was a total time of when I started was 1 hour and 31 minutes total. That's including my break time, because I couldn't just sit there and slam on that for an hour and 31. Yeah, couldn't do that either. Now, if you exclude my break time, that was 45 minutes of actual hammering on that thing. You'll notice a couple times I got in there, and I've got some wedges here, some chisels that I was using as wedges, I should say, where I got out far enough on the hub here that I could start to drive this in and on both sides and create some tension, because what happens is once that race gets all sloppy and this whole thing moves, you might be wasting a lot of your energy slamming on this, just pulling it tight. So if you can get the tension on it to keep it tight, then when you're slamming your hammer, you're actually getting that outward all your force is creating that outward pull on it instead of snugging up the tension there. So at the very end, I was able to I got out far enough, I could just drive my pickle fork in and just completely pry it out of the side there. So that's that. Now, you'll see the inside bearing race came off with this hub. Now we're going to have to cut this off here with a grinder or something. So that's probably going to be the next step, but I'm going to need another brake. So like I say, you can do this with the slide hammer. I don't recommend it. If you can afford just a bit of cash, even, I mean, you go to a Harbor Freight or something, you can get a cheap press and that'll do the job. That'll work. If you pay $200 for that, like, what's your time worth? You know, this just took an hour and a half of this. If you had to do both sides, you're talking 3 hours, and now your hands aren't going to work for the next 2 days. Yeah, I don't recommend it. You can do it, and I showed you. I just did it, but that was a lot of time and effort for what we accomplished here. So anyway, that's behind us now. I'm glad that's done. Yeah, I don't want to do it again. And like, not to toot my own horn, but like, these arms are no joke, man. I train hard, and that took me an hour and a half. Yeah, good thing I eat my Wheaties. So let's move on with this job now. It's behind us. So nothing. Hard work never killed anybody. So next, we're gonna go ahead and cut that race off, and then I'll show you pulling the rest of this bearing out of this hole here. All right. Now, before I officially start cutting here, I've got my grinder and I can do some cutting. What we would want to do here is just make a little angle cut onto that race there. But you do have to be very careful, because you don't want to go right through and start nicking up your hub. It's not the end of the world if you nick it a little bit, but I'd like to avoid it if I can. So if I can avoid cutting altogether, I will. So the same trick I was using there with my wedges to get that this bearing pulled out. Let's see if we can't just wedge in and start driving this this race off here. Because that would be optimal if this thing would just pop right off that way. Now, does anything ever go that easy? No. I gave that a little bit there. Yeah, I don't know if that moved much at all. I'm just going to go ahead and cut it, because that's the easiest thing to do. And we like easy. So let's try to do this without anything moving around. I mean, ultimately having a vise would be ideal, but I haven't finished my garage and built a workbench yet, so let's just do this way. Now, what do you think? Will this just break apart on us? Oh yeah, there we go. There you go. So I didn't have to cut right through. Just getting a little cut into it relieved enough tension on that there, and probably heated up the race a bit too, that it loosened it up on the shaft here. The shaft. And then we were able to just pry that right off. Easy peasy. Okay, great. Looks good, no marks or nothing. We'll clean it up even better here. The flapper wheel in a bit. On to pulling our bearing. Now, first things first, we got this snap ring here at the front that holds that outer bearing race in. Having snap ring pliers would be the ideal solution here, but I don't have any right now, and as we've discussed, I don't do anything the easy way, because I'm an idiot. So I'll just get myself a little bit of room there and try and pry this out. Here she comes. Not so hard, even without the right tools. So we'll keep that guy. There's our snap ring. Now, let's get out the bearing press here. Another cheap tool, which I will show you. All right, here's our cheap Amazon Find bearing puller kit. Pretty simple. It's got a bunch of different sizes in it here and stuff. So we've got a threaded rod that goes through our hole, and then we've got a plate that goes around the back side that matches up with the outer bearing race, and then a plate, or cup I should say, for the front that goes against the spindle that gives the room bearing to come out. The bearing room to come out. Jesus. Who's speaking there? All right. So we'll go ahead and set that up. We'll just go ahead and then you can run the impact on the end of that, and that'll just yank that bearing race right out of there. And like I said, having a press would be ideal and great, but this will not be near as bad as the slide hammer business. Like, this will be easy peasy. This will be no problem. So I'll go ahead and just set that up, and then you can watch me rip that out. No problemo. All right, there's our contraption set up, ready to go. I hope that light's good enough there. I think it's starting to die. Main important thing there is make sure you get the right cup size, or the right plate size for the back. You don't want to have one that's too big by accident, and then you're just grabbing on the back side of the hub here, or the spindle, I should say. And then you're not going to be able to yank the bearing through because your plate's too big. So you use a small enough one. Definitely make sure that it's going to cut inside there. And that's it. Let's give her. Voila. Okay, with that bearing out of the hole, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a bit. Just clean up this, use a seal pick here. Clean up this little spot where the little recess here where our snap ring rides. And then we'll take the flapper wheel and just quickly run out the inside here. With that all cleaned up, we got our new wheel bearing here. Maple Ace. Quality brand, I'm sure. Got our grease tube. You don't need to slather this. We'll just put a little film on it. Make a horrible mess of my hands. Now you'll see lots of people freeze these things, and I don't know. If you're talking real big bearings on heavy duty equipment, yeah, we freeze them. Like when I used to work on big old 400-ton haul trucks, I mean, the bearings are so big, like you had to freeze them. We used liquid nitrogen. Just let them soak in there for a while. Freeze them right down to Kelvin or whatever. And then they would slip right in pretty good. We don't need to do that with this one. This will just drive itself in, no problem here. So we got that bearing greased. Going to turn our contraption around here. Okay, we're all set up there now. Now, very important here, like say we flip this around, but this plate here on the front has to contact your outer race. If it's too small on the inside, it's going to put all the pressure on the inner race, and that's how you could just drive that bearing apart, or like you'll ruin the bearing before you even put it in. So right now you're pressing against that outside race into its hub here. So you have to make contact with that outside race as you're pushing, so that you're only pushing that. And then see, we got our cup back there. That's where we're going to push to. And that's it. So this thing is about 30 millimeters, this particular one. I'm probably going to need a wrench on there. There we go, sucked her straight in, all good. Okay, with our bearing drove home, you saw me snug that up nicely. You want to make sure it's snug so it's all the way back, you know, and you've got space for your snap ring to fit in the groove. Snap ring is fitted there to make sure that bearing stays in. Don't forget to do that, obviously. And now we want to drive the hub into the inner race of the bearing. So like I mentioned before, this time we're going to be pushing against the inner race of the bearing. So we're going to need a flat piece for the back that makes sure it's holding that inner race tight. And then we're going to push this in. I got to grease that first on the inside of the bearing here. And then we'll go ahead and set up our contraption and drive this in. And there you go. Contraption set up, hub in place. It actually slid in real nice there, probably about a quarter of the way. So we know we're straight. This one looks like it's going to go in real easy. So let's see if that's true or not. And it did. Seems like it snugged up home real nice. I'm just going to back this off of here. There's our brand new wheel bearing. All set. Now, we got to take this entire spindle right off the car, because now we're doing struts and we got everything else to do. Those control arms. So, let's get after that. All right, let's get this show on the road here. Looks like they made things easy. 17 mil, 17 mil, 17 mil. We're just going to split this spindle off of here so we have our strut hanging. We'll get this stabilizer end link off for the sway bar, and then we'll just have the strut free floating there, and we can go ahead and pull that from the top. Impact it is. Now, I wish I could say I had just got right onto this like it looks like in the video for you guys, but it's like a day and a half later. When it's a beautiful day out and your 5-year-old says, "Dad, let's run through the sprinkler," you run through the sprinkler. So that put a kibosh on that day's work. Something to be aware of. You always want to turn from the nut side, because a lot of times on a suspension setup like this, the shoulder of the neck of your bolt going through there will be splined to hold it still, because sometimes you'll set your part of your alignment through these bolts. They'll be eccentric. I don't think that this one is, but that's just something to treat it like it is, right? Always just pull the nut side. That's the side you want to rotate and turn. These bolt necks here are shouldered, so you can hit them without worrying about mushrooming the bolt. So you don't want to do that with a normal flat-headed top end of a bolt there. You mushroom that, and then you'll never get your nut back onto it. So yeah, there's no splined neck on these ones, so we would have been fine to turn them either side, but neither here nor there. They're out. Yank that guy out. There's our whole spindle off now with our fresh bearing in it. Now we're going to go ahead and I'll get the other end of this sway bar end link off, and we can yank the strut out, which is just one bolt from the top. I'll show you. Now, one thing I'm not against with awkward stuff like this, we're replacing it anyway, is just cutting it off, because it's going to be so much hassle just getting in there to dick around trying to get a wrench in and wedge that out. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the stud clean off, and that'll just pull right out of there. So Watch your eyeballs. Gone. Hopefully I got that close enough, it'll pull out. These threads want to just be a bit of a jerk up here. That's gone. Okay, strut's totally free. We just got one nut holding it in up top. And we got to replace this entire control arm here because we got all new ones with new bushings and everything. All right, let's get under there and just yank this out first while I'm here, I suppose. All right. Vicky's got his blankie out. We're good to go. Oh yeah, toy. That's always a good sound to hear. It's like the same sound when you pry the old lady's legs open after 6 months, hey? Now you'll notice when I loosened this first bolt here, you could see the whole control arm drop. Now that was kind of a good thing. And I'll show you when we do the install that there's some certain steps you want to take before you just go and tighten these bolts up. You don't want this control arm hanging loose. When you tighten everything up, you want it in its proper plane of motion first before you tighten it. Otherwise, you're starting to rip those brand new bushings you put in. Okay, here we are up top. Now, for a car that they cheaped out on everything else of, this is kind of a weird thing to see, but nice as well. Our strut bolt, top mount bolt, is right under here. This is actually a little plastic cover that just pops right off. And what that does is it actually stops water from pooling into here and corroding everything that sits in this little bucket. There's a lot of cars that don't do that. That's like an aftermarket thing you would go get. This car's old as hell, so maybe somebody went and did that. But if this is actually a Chevy original, then I'm impressed. But that's about the only thing I'm impressed with. Not much else. All right, now, if you were smart, you probably would have done this first and just let the strut sit there because now there's nothing, the strut's not attached to anything. So it's going to go ahead and just turn the whole strut as we do this. So if you're me, instead of someone smart, I just got a bar shoved through there in the bottom for now to hold that strut in one place. This comes off very easily. And this is just a mount bolt. This is not what actually holds the spring cap onto the strut. So we don't have to worry about the strut coming apart when we do this. And I'm pretty sure I can fit my small DeWalt up there. There we go. Strut out. Okay, here's our whole new uni strut here. One piece, simple. If you were going to do these separate, like it's not even worth your time anymore for the price of these things. For you to go ahead and have to, if you've got the tool to compress the spring and then get your top hat off, that's great. But otherwise, you got to go borrow that or rent it. And I mean, there is certainly a risk there. You're dealing with a bunch of pent up tension there when you compress these, and you're taking that on and off. Your tool slips, that can shoot out, that can hit something. It's just, for the price of these entire assemblies, it's just not even worth it. You just go ahead and buy the whole thing. So, like I said, comes with a new top mount there and a nut. So I'll go ahead and spin that off, shove it in the hole, and we'll just hang our strut there for now, and then we'll go back down and do the bottom. All right, strut coming in. Peekaboo. Now it's on there. Back on the bottom. Here's our brand new lower control arm with all new bushings. This is our pivot bushing here. And then we've got brand new ball joint on there. Still got a protective cover on. So just got to go ahead and shove that up into place here. Now that back bolt there, we can go ahead and fire that one in and tighten it up. But this front one here I was talking about earlier, let's see if you can see that anymore. The one in the back here, I don't even think it's lit up enough, but it's the pivot one. I'm going to go ahead and I'll run the bolt in there almost snug, and then we'll wait. What we're going to do is get a jack under here and compress this and put this in its proper plane of motion with the weight on the car where the strut would compress to once we're all connected, and then we'll tighten that up. Because if you tighten that up with it down here, once the car does settle on its weight and compress everything, now your bushing is under tension just by coming up like that in its natural plane of movement where it normally rides. If you're sitting under tension all the time with that bushing, it's just only a matter of time before it rips. So we want to keep those in good shape. That's the whole reason we're doing this, is to make the car feel new again. So let's go ahead and fire these bolts in there. I guess first things first is I'm going to get off and clean these bolts with some wire brush and throw some never sees on things, because I like to do that. Now, I know that this procedure may call for Loctite on these bolts, and you guys can go ahead and rip me for that if you like. I just put some never sees on them there. Everything gets corroded here where I live, and I've never had these things fall out on me before. So I'm just going to keep doing it the way I do it. If it was a customer car, you know, I might be a little more inclined to just do what the book says for, you know, liability's sake and all that. But for me, working on its sake, I'm just really not worried about these things falling out. Maybe I'll eat crow on this one. You never know. And then you guys can laugh at my funeral. I told him in the comments. Doesn't he know? There you go. Mere child's play. There. Now, I didn't run that in full snug, just like I said. This one we will get tight, though. Okay. Hopefully my audio is not mucked up there with my microphone jamming into my neck. Okay, what's next? Let's get this spindle here. Actually, no, first things first. Let's get those stabilizer end link on there first. Okay, we're gonna have to get our sway bar pried down here. Get on the right side of this thing first. We just need to get some tension down on the sway bar to get it low enough to pop into our mount hole up on the strut. There you go. Fall right into place. And I need my bare hands here. That's always the way the job starts. Put gloves on thinking you're going to keep these meat hooks clean today, and it never goes that way. Okay, is this, I'm pretty sure this is a 17, that 19 is too big, of course it is. I think I can rattle those in with an impact. Or at least, I should say, my my impact drill. There's that one, and of course we can't get at the back one, as we've mentioned before. Somebody decided to make that difficult. Some engineer. But hey, could be worse. We could be working on a Ford today, but I would never be silly enough to own something like that. Now, you can argue all you want about Oh, the Ford's really reliable. What's the other one I've heard from people? They always I have like 4 customers that all have these old like 2008 year style Ford Escapes. And I've heard a few of them say the same thing. They say, oh, well, let's get a ratchet wrench here. That 3-liter Duratec motor, the V6, is the most reliable engine ever made. At least somebody told me that anyway. And maybe it is. I don't know. I certainly never heard that as a mechanic. But everything around it, or any work you ever have to do on it, feels like it was engineered by a guy who failed engineering school. Or the old joke for us in the trade is, you know, some engineer a long time ago at Ford, his wife cheated on him with a mechanic, and he decided from that day forward he was going to make mechanics' lives a living hell for the rest of his time. So, and then he must have passed those trade secrets on to all the other oncoming engineers that work at Ford. They got a few cars that, you know, I could almost say that I like. You know, these Mustangs with a ton of power. And, you know, the more power they have, the more pedestrians they can plow through at Cars and Coffee. Which is kind of funny, though. I always make the joke that these guys that think they're car guys that drive Fords, they're not real car guys. Because if they were, they would understand all the things that suck about their Ford. But then you see all these accidents they have. And the reason that they have these style accidents, when you see them go sideways at Cars and Coffee and they come out, it's because they don't understand the way that the dynamics of how a vehicle works when you drive it. So as soon as they get sideways, well, what do? They immediately let off the throttle. So they pitch all that weight forward onto the front wheels, and then the thing spins out and loses control. So that's how physics works, people. Okay, now we got that tightened up. We can get the spindle in place. And I will have to come back. These are actually nice. They got aftermarket grease fittings on these, on the sway bar end link there. So I'll come back and grease that after. And we'll get our protective cover off here. And don't lose that nut. Slide that on. Get our axle into place, actually, while we're at it. Let's just do that first so I don't have to bend anything. Where's your home? Get into your home, ball joint. Okay, we got our spline through there. All right. Bottom ball joints through. Again, use your imagination if you cannot see. I'm just threading a nut onto a stud. It's exciting stuff, I know. Now, hopefully I don't have to eat my words here and wish that I would have done this sway bar end link after. It looks like it'll be okay. I'm going to go ahead and actually clean these mount bolts up here too. Be right back. All right, bolts are cleaned up. We're ready to go in. Now I like to put some never sees on this little shoulder there because that's what's going to go through there and can potentially fill up with corrosion and stuff. Now, the irony here is that's obviously probably a good bit of overkill because the likelihood that I own this red racer go-kart here for long enough that it ever needs suspension work again is slim to none. But who knows, maybe in 15 years, some guy who's trying to keep this thing on the road that I sell it to will write me a nice thank you letter one day. Comes across this video. Hey, that's my car. Holy, thanks for making my life easier, buddy. Steak dinner on me. Yeah, right. But if you want to send me your steak dinners, feel free. What am I talking about? But yeah, the rest is all just hook it all back up. That's it. We shouldn't have to wrestle with anything else now. Get our tie rod back in place. Now, I didn't feel any play in these tie rods, so I didn't want to just go ahead and replace them for no reason. Get the angle right on that. So, hopefully they don't decide to just wear out in a week or so. I could probably get shove a grease gun in there and just pile them full of grease with a needle implement on my grease gun. That one is a 3/4. I knew one of these was somewhere. Great. You say still not fully torqued, but it's on there for now. Okay, our washer to go with our axle nut. Don't want to forget about that guy. Get this axle nut on there. And let's give this a dimple just for funsies. And also for safety, you know. Always got to be safe. At least you do when the boss is looking. Okay, our ball joint is tight. Everything's tight now, except for our top mount there for the strut. I still got to get up and do that, but we're just going to finish up down here first. Cleaned up our brake disc here off camera because it got a little penetrating oil on the brake disc. Our makeshift hook out of here, our hanger. Now, something that I've heard works well, and I'm going to have to go check it, is you can go to the dollar store, I guess, and they have, they're like plant hangers. It's like $2 or $1. I guess, I don't know. The dollar store has nothing that's actually $1 anymore, do they? But those hooks there, they're like couple bucks or whatever they are, and they work real good for hanging brake calipers apparently. So I'm going to go look for some myself when I get a chance, and if I find some and they work, I'll be certain to pass it along to you guys because I'm cool like that. Back up top. Just zing this guy in pretty quick here. What did I grab now? This is a different size than the one that come off of there. It is. All right. Well then, what do we got? We tried 21. 21 it is. Look at that. Guess my eyeballs aren't totally shot. You get a lucky guess every once in a while. Okay. I think that's about it for our front end here. Now we can move on to the back end. Just kidding. One last thing. I knew I could have done this off camera, but I already talked about it a number of times, so I figure we got to do it. We have that last bolt where this control arm pivots back there, that mount bolt. So I've got the jack here underneath my control arm, and we're just going to jack that up. Just like I said, and compress that suspension. Get it to the point right where it normally rides, where it's about holding the car's weight. And then that's it. Just get under there and tighten that last one up. So we get that bushing tightened in its normal plane of motion, like I said, in its more neutral plane, I should say. And that's all there is to it. It's not like a big procedure or a big process or anything. Now we can let this down. So now the way it's dropped now, there's probably some tension on that bushing. But we're going to go ahead and put the wheel on, and then we pop it off the jack stands here and drop it on the ground. Then that tension's gone again. And that's it for the front end, really. I'm not putting the wheel on yet. We're going to go to the back end and work on that. And before we strip this, put this wheel back on and get her on the ground. Let's go to the back.